For more on this, let's turn to our senior political editor, Steve Chaggaris, who is in Washington. Good to see you, Steve.
Great to see you, Vlad.
All right, so if Trump really does contribute $10 million of his own money, what sort of impact could that have? I mean, in these last final days, is that injection going to help?
Well, it could. You know, I mean, you showed those numbers where she has a significant advantage in terms of cash on hand. Those numbers were as of last week. We've also seen, if you look deeply into these campaign filings, that the big donors have sort of dried up for Donald Trump. And I think some of them are waiting to see how serious he is about this final stretch here. I think putting that kind of money, of his own money, into the campaign would maybe get some donors off their seats and opening their wallets for Trump and for the RNC to help him across the finish line. The other thing, too, is that kind of infusion of cash he may need in some of these battleground states moving forward. I mean, he needs momentum, desperately needs momentum in several battleground states in order to get over the top there to win those states. And so that kind of money could help in those situations too.
But Steve, he's also, in the last couple of days, said he's going to put $100 million into his campaign. Even if he puts in writes a $10 million check today, he's still going to fall short of that $33 million. And I guess the question for a lot of voters and the Republican Party, would they want to see him put in that $100 million? Is that $30, $40 million if he writes a check today? Is that what's going to be needed to compare or at least to combat what Hillary Clinton is doing?
I mean, they're all numbers. It doesn't really, there's no specific number that you need to hit. I mean, of course he said that and he's not meeting it. And so donors are asking, wait, why did he promise this? Why did we think that he was going to be putting all this of his own money into it, and he hasn't? And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why you're seeing these big donors sit by and not give him more money. However, you know, at the end of the day, too, you get after the election, and if he winds up losing some close races in some of these battleground states, he could possibly look back and say, did I spend enough money to get across the finish line in some of these places? And so you'd be second guessing yourself. So, you know, that also comes into play as well. So, you know, the question is do you just throw money at it? He's the type of guy who's been pretty frugal comparatively to many political candidates, especially when it comes to his own money, and he sort of brags about that frugality. And so, you know, but if he loses, you got to wonder if he's going to be second guessing that he didn't put enough in.
All right, Steve, another topic that's getting a lot of attention today, a senior Trump campaign official told Bloomberg about a plan to suppress the vote, specifically that there's a plan out there to discourage African-American voters, young women, and white liberals from voting. Mike Pence dismissed that as offensive. What are you hearing about that? What's the potential fallout?
Well, I'm not sure the average voter, this is going to trickle down to the average voter. I think what's really interesting about this is how candid that campaign staffer was about their strategy. And the question I have is, what do you mean by voter suppression? Is it language? And if it's language, we've actually seen it since Donald Trump's new campaign manager and campaign chairman has started over the summer, which is speaking to African-American voters and telling them directly, why are you voting for Democrats? They haven't done anything for you. You should take a chance on me. Or speaking to people who support Bernie Sanders, for instance, liberals or younger voters, and saying that the system is rigged and, you know, you supported him, so you should support me. So in the language, we've actually seen it. It's just interesting to sort of see somebody talking about that's the strategy. The question is this just language, or is there something more sinister by using the term voter suppression? I don't know the answer to that question. All I can tell you is in terms of language, we've seen what they've tried to do, and it's not a strange thing for candidates to do that, to try to speak to voters and try to get them to stay home.
All right, let's turn to the Clinton camp now, Steve. The WikiLeaks emails obviously are continuing to dog her campaign. There are new leaks out that reveal that senior members of her staff were caught off guard when news broke about the use of her private email server while she was Secretary of State. I mean, she hasn't been answering any questions about this at all. What is that going to do for the Trump campaign? And are they able to capitalize on it? I mean, a lot of these things that have been coming out about Hillary Clinton through WikiLeaks, in any other election season, this would be devastating. And I wonder if it's because it's already baked into the electorate of who they're going to vote for, or is it because Trump has not been able to use it as an attack line effectively?
Well, Trump also has his own controversies that are cropping up here, too. And so we're talking about all this stuff. There's a lot of noise. So any individual controversy has its own competition with the other controversies, whether it's Trump's or Clinton's. I think what's interesting here is, you know, if you actually read these emails, her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, said we asked her about these emails, and they said it was all taken care of. And clearly it wasn't all taken care of, and that's what wound up blowing up in March of 2015 when the New York Times reported all the issues with these emails. And so, yes, they were caught off guard. I think what it shows is it raises questions about how Hillary Clinton will govern if she's president of the United States. Is everything out there? You know, and it raises questions among voters who continue to have questions about how open, how honest she's being with everybody, and is there more to come? The question is are those questions what is causing? We're seeing polling in the last couple of weeks tighten a little bit. Is that the reason why they're tightening, or is it just a natural tightening of the polls? I don't know the answer to that question, but I can tell you that we've had sort of nonstop discussion of these WikiLeaks for a couple of weeks now, and none of it has been good for her. And it just plays, again, into the underlying opinions that people have of her, which is that she's just not honest and trustworthy.
You know, Steve, what I was reminded of when I saw that WikiLeaks release, the fact that her own staff wasn't aware of these things, or she was saying that it was all taken care of, it reminded me of when President Clinton was with the Monica Lewinsky affair. In many instances, he told his staffers that this was not anything, this was not a big deal. And these folks who pour their hearts into these campaigns, who pour their hearts into supporting these candidates, end up getting blindsided by things that they should be made aware of. And as you point out, that lends credence to the folks who say she's not even transparent to her own people that are close to her. How can she be transparent to the American public?
Well, right. Now, they have to go out and do damage control when this stuff comes out, right? So it just makes, you know, they're dealing with the emotion of it as well. And so I think it makes their jobs much harder because they thought they were doing their due diligence on this and they weren't told the whole story. And so I think playing cleanup after all that's going to be a little frustrating. All
right, Steve, last question. I wonder if this is a pivot of sorts, leaking or a leak that Vice President Biden is on Hillary Clinton's shortlist to be the Secretary of State. I wonder if this, I mean, you tell me, does this move the needle at all in her favor, or is this just a way to get people buzzing about her campaign and not buzzing about WikiLeaks?
Yeah, that's what Nancy Cordes pointed out earlier today. I think she's onto something there. Definitely flip the script a little bit, try to talk about something that would be a potential positive spin for her campaign. I mean, you look at Biden, he's out there on the stump campaigning on her behalf. He's one of her surrogates. He's a fairly well-liked guy. In certain areas, in certain battleground states, Pennsylvania, for instance, Ohio, blue-collar workers, he's well regarded. So to put out there that she's thinking of a guy like this to be part of her cabinet, that's not a bad thing. The reality of it is, it doesn't seem like something that makes much sense. If you look at who Hillary Clinton has surrounded herself with, she's surrounded herself with people that she doesn't sort of butt heads with, but people who she works very closely with. Her and Biden butted heads a lot on foreign policy during her time as Secretary of State. As I pointed out earlier, she doesn't strike me as the type of person who's the coach of a team of rivals. It just doesn't seem like Biden would fit in whoever she chooses for her cabinet.
And yet, Steve, I'm just curious. I mean, in an election season where people are looking for, we saw with the rise of Donald Trump, with the effective campaign that Bernie Sanders launched, if this isn't just more of the same and what people are sort of saying that they're sick of. I mean, to have Joe Biden, I know he's extremely popular. Clearly, President Obama is very popular still. But does she want to give the impression that it's going to literally be 4 more years of President Obama?
Well, I mean, that's not a bad thing for her. She, at least in some ways, she has President Obama and Michelle Obama and Joe Biden all out there talking on her behalf across the country. In fact, some would argue that they're better spokespeople for her than she is of herself. And President Obama's approval ratings have gone up in recent months. So it might not be that bad of a thing to have somebody out there like Biden floating that name out there as somebody that she would consider for her cabinet.
You're right. And there's those positive economic numbers as well today. Steve Chaggaris in Washington. Thank you as always, my friend.
Thanks, Vlad.